Hey everybody, in this video I'll be showing the upholstery step for our DIY absorption panel kit. This is maybe the most tentative step for folks considering doing DIY absorption panels. But I think I have some tips and tricks in this video that will help demystify this fairly straightforward upholstery job. At the end of the upholstery, I'll also show the installation of the standoffs and talk a bit about methods for mounting these panels. I'll talk some about fabric choice in the middle of the video, as the upholstery segment takes a while. So let's get into the tools you'll need to do this step. You're going to need a good pair of scissors, and to attach your fabric to the frame, I suggest using staples. I use a cheap hand stapler in this video, but a pneumatic stapler is faster and easier. You're also going to need some super glue to attach the standoffs at the end. A pair of needle nose pliers is good to have on hand to remove any errant staples, and a hammer can also help tap in any proud staples. A clothes iron can help press out any creases or wrinkles in your fabric. This can be more or less important depending on your fabric choice, which I'll discuss in a bit. A quick note on safety. With the hand stapler, you may see me be a bit flippant shooting staples towards my hand. This is probably not best practice. So the good habit to form is to remove your non-stapling hand right before you shoot your staple. This is likely more important with a pneumatic stapler, but forming good habits is always good. Now on to the upholstery. So there's a sweet spot you want to hit with your excess fabric, that you will not always see me hit in this video. Ideally, you want just enough extra fabric, but also minimize how much material you have to manage while doing your folding and stapling. But cutting it close could result in a total failure, which can be pretty annoying. You can use your frame to measure the fabric, but measure twice and cut once. Alternatively, a template could be made, or a measured size of fabric could be used to consistently and quickly have your fabric ready to upholster. I'm showing a generalized rough and tumble methodology that will do just fine for doing a couple of frames. I like to start with two parallel edges, and in rectangular frames I start with the long edges. The edges you start with will determine which way your future folds will go. So if you know the orientation you are going to mount the frames, you can hide the fold some on the relative top and bottom of the frame. I like to orientate the frame so I'm pulling the fabric with my non-dominant hand and stapling with my dominant hand. So I tend to spin the frame to meet my hands. But for the sake of filming, sometimes you'll see me break that. After the first edge, a quick flip will make sure the fabric is stretched nicely over the frame. This is the last time any major change in your fabric stretch can happen without you having to pull staples out. In general, I've found that there is a sweet spot when it comes to fabric tension as well. While I've often had the propensity to stretch the fabric quite taut, this often resulted in stretching or uneven and wonky final results. So just enough tension to keep the fabric tight to the frame is enough, which I personally found to be a lot less tension than I initially thought was required. So let's talk fabric choice. In this video, I'm using a jute cloth that was readily available from the local fabric store. It has a couple nice qualities that I like. First, it passes the breathability test. This is a classic way to tell if a fabric is a good fit for absorption panels. It's pretty simple. Just hold up the fabric to your mouth and see if air passes through it. If the air can get in, the audio can get in. Second, the jute cloth is quite forgiving on tension. After having done quite a few of these in jute cloth, I started noticing that even if there was some wrinkles or unconformities, after a few days it would sort of settle in. It also works well on the corners and edges, in that it softly rounds them without any real specific attention needing to be paid. There's a reason that jute cloth is kind of the classic fabric for acoustic treatment. That isn't to say that other fabrics wouldn't work just fine. If they pass the breathability test, then go for it. As we move on to the corners here, I felt like I had a little bit excess fabric that I knew would be a pain when I was trying to form nice clean corners, so I went ahead and just trimmed some of it off. I think these corners might be a bit hard to verbally describe, so bear with me. There's going to be a seam that is visible, so pick which side you'd like the seam to be oriented, then fold the fabric at around 45 degrees under from the corner. Then fold over the top fabric so that it's then parallel to your edge. Make sure you go the same direction every time or you'll kick yourself when you get to the end of the job. Now, not that I've done that or anything. I think the best way to explain this is to just have you watch all 4 corners and see how I fiddle and fret over them. I sometimes hack off excess material that is making the folds more cumbersome. Getting their initial lengths more spot on will help reduce the need to do this. I like to get my one corner nice and then do a few staples towards the other corner, then do that adjacent corner. Doing it in that order gives you a bit more liberty to get the corner how you'd like. Hopefully these visuals give you some confidence on the corners. Here's a different camera angle on this side, so maybe that gives you a little better visual. And here's a final top-down sort of angle for the last corner. So let me show you how I cleaned this backside up a bit. I like to hack away any major excess fabric at first, then chase the fabric around the frame on the interior side with staples. This also does give you a little final touch on the tension. You can then go back with confidence to trim the fabric a bit closer to the staples. So the last step is adding these little frame standoffs. These improve how well the frames soak up low-end information. There's a great video that dives into how well these standoffs work that I'll post in the description below. But any standoff will improve the absorption up to the length of the frames themselves. I supply a little 1.25-inch standoff, but if you'd like to change that height, just buy any 3/4 dowel from the hardware store and cut it down to the size you'd like. The standoffs do affect how you'll mount these panels to your wall or ceiling. In the kit, I supply a huge drywall anchor with a nice long screw that makes it fairly easy to mount these size standoffs on all drywall walls. But these are limited to this size standoff or shorter and can't be placed right on a stud. A nice long screw could function well on a stud. Another option would be putting picture frame wire on the panels, and that opens up a lot of options. Or making some quick wooden brackets if that's more your style. So hopefully this is the end of my trilogy of videos on assembling these absorption frame kits. Any feedback is much appreciated. And you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks.